Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm excited to be diving into high cortisol with you today, the causes, what contributes to it, how we can get rid of it. I feel like it is the first hormone that I end up talking about with women before we even get into their cycle, because cortisol is a stress hormone and it can wreak havoc on our body, and it is so dictated by our actions and our lifestyle. So I'm drinking some matcha with you today in a cute little autumn mug because it is the beginning of November. I feel like the season is finally full swing into fall, and it's just been so fun to get cozy, even though I'm still in a tank top, because I'm in California and we're still transitioning to fall. So I like to have those types of things to just kind of make me feel a little bit cozier, and it has been at least feeling cooler in the morning and the evenings. But to dive into cortisol, it's a stress hormone and it's released from your adrenal glands. So the interesting thing about it is that it can be so dictated by our lifestyle and our food and our fitness and our daily life. But it can also be triggered mentally and emotionally, which we don't always hear about. So first, let's get into what high cortisol would look like in your body. So if you notice that you're having a bloated belly, or you're having a hard time losing weight in your stomach area, no matter how much you work out, no matter how much healthy eating you're doing, you're noticing a lot of that bloat or weight gain within your midsection. So that's where high cortisol likes to hang out. It likes to just chill out in our stomachs, which of course none of us want. Think of it like I had a woman in the Balanced Bombshells community talk about the stummy, where it's kind of like the stressed out tummy, which is totally accurate and spot on. So I have had a lot of clients where they've been having a lot of weight stuck or a lot of bloat, and they just don't know how to get rid of it. And so their exercising ends up becoming more because they think they need to work out more to be able to lose the weight, and then they realize that they're gaining weight, and it's all very much hanging out in their stomach area. So obviously we want to be lean within our stomach. So it's just lean, that's just a physical symptom that you might be having high cortisol levels. Another one would come forward a little bit more emotionally. So if you're feeling a little bit more anxious and overwhelmed, even though you're like, wow, I'm trying to do everything that I can to manage my stress levels, yet I'm still feeling stressed out and something's just not clicking. So emotionally, you might feel a little bit more agitated. If you go to sit down and read your email, do you feel like you're mentally stressed out just going to open your email? Or someone calls you on the phone and you look at it and you're just like, oh, I'm feeling stressed from even talking about this person. Those mental thoughts causes cortisol to essentially be released. It's basically triggering our fight or flight mode, which is getting your body to react to something that you perceive as a threat, whether that's physical, emotional, or mental. So even by checking your email or having someone call you on the phone that you don't really want to talk to, it can actually release cortisol. So these little bits throughout the day can just contribute to it. So emotionally, you might be feeling a little bit more moody, a little bit more agitated. You might notice that you have high cortisol at different times of the day versus others. So our cortisol also runs our circadian rhythm, which is our wake sleep cycle. So if you wake up in the morning and you're feeling really tired, or you're just like, wow, I just don't feel fully awake until 10 a.m., your cortisol pattern could be off, especially if you're then feeling wired at night. So cortisol is supposed to spike in the morning when we get up, and it's supposed to lower at night. So melatonin, which is our sleepy hormone, can increase so we can actually then go to sleep and get a restorative sleep. So you might notice that you're not sleeping as well during the night. You're definitely having more fatigue in the morning and throughout the day, but then you're feeling pretty wired at night. We're like, why am I getting this burst of energy when I'm supposed to be winding down and going to bed? So that can be contributed to cortisol being off, and then cortisol can be higher at different times of the day where you actually want them to be lower, which women kind of get a little bit confused about, because they might just thinking oh, I'm just a night owl. Well, it's your body wants to get up in the morning and be part of daylight. So usually we just have to look at the cortisol pattern. So that's another way that you might feel like it's off. So then the last way that you would know that cortisol would be off is if you're having trouble sleeping. So again, if you're feeling a little bit more wired at night, that would obviously have a harder time for you to be able to sleep during the night. So then of course you're going to be feeling more tired. And then we need deep restorative sleep to be able to metabolize cortisol. So you want to be able to sleep so you can then lower it. Your body processes out the cortisol that it doesn't need, and then emotionally you feel happier, you feel more energetic, and then physically you'll notice that you won't be hanging onto that bloat or weight gain in your midsection. So you can kind of see how all this comes together, and how even things just kind of getting stuck, or this hormone being off. And then another thing with high cortisol is if you're noticing that you're having a lot of cycle issues, so like PMS or period problems, what happens is cortisol can compete for the same receptors as progesterone, which is the hormone that's dominant in the second part of our cycle, which can then contribute to PMS symptoms and some of our period problems. So we really want to get cortisol under control so that not only do you feel better, you look your best, you feel fantastic, and you're thriving in life, but then also so your cycle is running effectively. Because if cortisol is too high, it's then attaching where progesterone is supposed to go. So then you don't feel calm before your period, you feel more agitated and overwhelmed. And then if you're already feeling a little bit bloated before your period, because now your cycle hormones are off, it's just going to contribute and compound to the issue and make you feel so much worse. So that was one of the hormonal issues that I actually struggled with, was having too high of cortisol, and my progesterone was too low because my lifestyle was too stressed. So one, it came from commuting. I had about an hour commute each day. So not only commuting for work on a really long distance, but then also being at work. And I had a very stressful job. I used to plan events professionally. And so seasonally, I would go through these times of really high cortisol because my body had to really keep up with the demand of my career, where I wasn't resting as much. I was leaning on caffeine. I was, of course, then commuting. I wasn't sleeping as well. And you can kind of just see how it's this cortisol cocktail, and then you're just not feeling great. Other things that can contribute to cortisol being too high is if you're actually working out too much, or if you're working out at the different times of day with cardio. So cardio is best before 2 p.m. And that has to do with making sure that your cortisol is helping regulate your circadian rhythm. So I used to run after work. I used to go to spin classes after work, or I would try to do some sort of HIIT or some sort of harder workout after work, which would be after 5 p.m., which cortisol shouldn't be spiking essentially later at night. It should be coming down so you can wind down and then sleep well. So even by switching my workouts and making sure that I was doing cardio either in the morning when I first woke up, which would of course make me feel so much better and happier throughout the day and more awake, or at least doing it maybe during your lunch break before the 2 p.m. mark. And that just simple fix will help regulate your cortisol so much more than trying to do these cardio workouts after work. And I know that sometimes people are like, well, that's the only time I can get it in. You have to challenge yourself to either get up earlier and go to bed later at night, or it's not that you can't work out after work. It's just focusing on not doing cardio workouts after work if you're trying to bring down cortisol. And honestly, I don't do that much cardio anymore. I run maybe twice a week, and then I do a lot of walking. So walking can lower cortisol. So there's ways with your lifestyle and your daily habits that you can actually attack that hormone and make it work for you the way that you want. And I think that's, for me, one of the most empowering things about hormonal health anyway, is knowing how much control I have over what my body's doing just by having this understanding. And so it's not meant for you to know, most of us don't know about our hormones. So it's, having talks like this to be able to just understand it and just being oh, okay, now I know what changes I need to make, versus realizing oh, I'm working out so much harder, or, I'm exhausting myself by trying to get to the gym at night. And that's not where I really want to do it. But then I'm really tired in the morning because I'm not sleeping as well. So if you can even just take a break and chill out with cortisol, it will truly change your life. This is usually the kicker for the women in the Balanced Bombshells community, is even before we get to cycle syncing and changing out our workouts based on our cycle, I think cortisol is one of the first ones to attack, because the women in our community, they already eat well, they already exercise, they're already really motivated with their health. So how can you be just restructuring your day so that it's working for your body and controlling cortisol? It's life-changing. So definitely making sure that you're doing your cardio workouts before 2 p.m. Then looking at your caffeine and alcohol consumption. So both of those go to sparking our adrenal glands, and it then tells our adrenal glands to produce more cortisol. So if you're recognizing like, hey, I drink a few times a week at night and I have multiple drinks, each one of those are telling your body to produce more cortisol, especially at night when you want it to lower. So I'm all about moderation. Like I certainly love indulging and having a cocktail, but I also factor in cortisol and what my lifestyle has been. So I am not a regular drinker. I drink like maybe once a month. I'll have like a drink or two, and I usually try to partner that when I'm either on a date night with my husband, or because of COVID, doing it at home, or out with your girlfriends or going to a social event, but whatever works for you on that. I know everybody's different, but just kind of challenging your consumption. And so it's not saying that you can never do it, but it's just maybe it needs to be more of a moderate thing. I don't respond that well to alcohol because of the cortisol release and what it can do for my own blood sugar. It just doesn't make me feel great. So I always try to be very strategic in when I do indulge. And then with caffeine, I have gone through phases where I've had zero caffeine. I've gone through phases where when I was in event planning, in the thick of the season, I think there was a time where I was drinking like 4 cups of coffee a day, which was not great. I do not respond well to caffeine. Some people process it really quickly. Some people are what's called a slow burner, where you process it out much slower. And I was definitely one of those people. So I actually try to keep my consumption at about like 100 to 150 milligrams at most. Some people do really well between 200 and 300 milligrams. Some people do really well with 50, or 0. So it really just depends. But just recognizing too much caffeine can increase cortisol. And then with caffeine, definitely also looking at time of day, because cortisol is then also regulating your circadian rhythm. So trying to get your caffeine consumption in before 12 p.m. So definitely keeping that as a cutoff in your brain. So then your body has enough time throughout the day to be able to process and metabolize the caffeine out, so that you're more likely to sleep well at night. So if you're noticing, I'm having a harder time sleeping, but I've been having a cup of coffee at like 2, 3 in the afternoon, maybe that's one of the only fixes you need to do. So I think sometimes with cortisol too, sometimes it could be as easy as making a few simple tweaks. And that's what I also love about hormonal health too, is like, it doesn't have to be this overhaul in your life. It can really be these simple lifestyle changes that once we have the understanding and the knowledge of what our habits are doing to our body and how we can change it for it to work in the way that we want, and just to have that awareness and that objectivity, makes it so much easier. So if you get up and you're like, all right, I'm going to go for a short run in the morning, and then I'm going to have a cup of coffee while I'm getting ready. And then you're like bouncing off to work and just, doing your thing. And you're able to then do that because you're sleeping better at night. And oh gosh, it's life-changing. I have loved getting to know cortisol because it makes your life so much easier. If you're also realizing that this sounds like too much and you want more of a plan to follow, my Moody Meltdowns to Balanced Bombshell program would be perfect for you. And it's definitely a place for you to dive deeper. And I walk you through how to actually reset your adrenal glands, how to lower cortisol, and how to make it more of your lifestyle, so that you actually routinely just feel a lot like calmer and less stressed out. So you can use the link in the description below to explore that program and become a member. It's an automated course that you work through on your own time. And I give you my best tips on not only layering, like lowering cortisol, but also layering with your cycle syncing work. And it's just a fantastic way. It's like honestly how I live my life all the time, trying to keep cortisol and my cycle as balanced as possible. And it just makes everything else in your life feel so much more balanced. So definitely looking at your workouts, your caffeine and alcohol consumption, and then some food tips. If you're like, okay, I recognize that I'm just feeling a little bit more agitated, a little more overwhelmed, that's when you can also use food to be able to help your body move cortisol along. So some foods actually help us metabolize cortisol. So that can come in the form of beets. So you guys know I love adding beets because it helps so much with our blood flow, but it also helps with getting cortisol out of our body. Anything with like coconut, so like coconut milk, if you like Thai food, or MCT oil. I know a lot of people put in their matcha or coffee as a way to kind of be a healthy fat and stabilize your blood sugar with caffeine. Hemp seeds are really calming and good for cortisol. Basil and those, I'm trying to think if there's any else. I can put it in the description below if I think of any others, but usually I gravitate towards beets, coconut oil, or coconut like products, hemp seeds, and basil. And it just helps so much in lowering that cortisol. So then you'll actually feel calmer, you'll feel less stressed. And I also love to be able to use food in that way to be able to know, like, okay, what am I looking to feel like? Like, what do I need emotionally in my life? And what can I then add to my food? Because I don't want to sound like cliche, but like food technically is medicine because it really can make us feel so much better. So you're already eating well. So like these are just the ways that you can strategize a little bit more and give yourself more of that high vibe with what you're looking for. And then knowing how to bring down cortisol and even recognize when it's high, because I think it's unrealistic with the way in which we live our lifestyle today. Like we're always striving for something. We're always trying to pursue a goal. And by knowing that there's going to be periods of your life where it's going to be higher stress, knowing how to take these tips and tricks and apply them to your life, knowing like, okay, I'm going to need a little bit more support here because I'm going to feel a little bit more stressed out. I have felt this way so much this year after giving birth to my son and trying to navigate being a mom, still taking care of myself with my own workouts and my healthy eating, being a wife, being a friend, moving our life forward, working. Like, how do I then put all of that together? And so I know it's just a season of transition, and there have been many moments of high stress, and I've been leaning on all the tips and stuff that I've shared with you today to be able to help take my cortisol levels. And when I say cortisol levels, think of like taking your stress levels and bringing them down, because if we can keep our stress levels low, our bodies just function so much better. And then we feel better. Our energy is better. We sleep better. We're more energetic. So just everything compounds on top of it. So definitely getting to know cortisol is going to be one of your like little secrets in your life that you will always come back to, you will always lean on. And I thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any comments or questions, definitely leave them in the comments below, and I'm excited to hear from you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.